Hare Krishna. So today is 9th July Saptami here in Sri Mayapur Dham, and we've done a couple of videos already today. And we go right into this one. Coming out from the concept of production and consumption and budgeting, basically understanding how money is coming in and how money is going out. And a very interesting concept is that the Japanese have a system of tracking money, right? It's a cultural thing they do. It is called kakibo. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but basically they have a small book in which they write all their expenses, right? I'd say I catch a transportation vehicle that takes me from point A to point B and charges me 20 rupees. Okay, noted that down. I bought milk for 10 rupees. I bought a loaf of bread for 15 rupees. I bought some flour for 50 rupees. I went and had lunch at a cafe for 100 rupees, etc., etc., etc. Tracking it in that detail is actually a concept that's been there for quite a long time. The Japanese basically use this system, and it's very important for people to understand that it requires a lot of energy and time for you to do this, and that creates value, and that value basically goes to helping you preserve wealth, which is part of your budget, and then using that wealth for investing to help you generate more wealth. So if you're not going to create value by putting some effort in doing it, then there's no question of you then generating or growing that value, right? So it's very important to understand conceptually why you have to put effort and do things. Without that, then there is no result. And Srimad Bhagavatam explains this, that Lord Brahma, he did tapasya, tapa, right? And that is the nature of the universe, that one who does this austerity, who does, then he automatically gets power. And therefore, by doing that tapasya, Lord Brahma was imbued with the power to be able to do creation. So, therefore, creating value by doing austerity, by doing work, and this is the nature of the universe. And therefore, that's what people have to do in order to create wealth also. Now, understanding this, then we also have to understand the concept of targets, right? You have to have some direction and some goal towards which you're progressing, right? And while you're trying to make progress towards a goal, right, the Latin words, right, that give rise to the word called traction, which means I am going towards something, right? And the opposite, distraction, right, means I'm going further away from that goal. Now, you could not say that being focused is more important, and that is the opposite of distraction, but the actual focus point, sorry, the actual area to be emphasized is traction, right? Traction means, am I progressing towards that goal, right? Am I reducing the distance between from where I am to the point where I need to be? And that is about observing all these various items that we keep talking about in terms of production, consumption, understanding wealth, and all the other different aspects that we talk about. Example, sense control, being regulated, following the principles, strong sadhana. These are very important, especially for devotees, to always keep together. Otherwise, they will become distractions, right? It will not mean that you're not focused, but it is not taking you towards your goal, which is traction. That is what we need to focus. We need to focus on traction rather than focus on focus. Sorry, my English is not very refined in that statement, but the main point is to be emphasizing traction, not focus. Now, once you have goals set, it's very important to understand, are those goals realistic, right? If someone says, I want to make maybe $100 billion, right? We would have to really assess their financial situation to say, is it possible? Is it not? Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you're someone who can create a system, you're someone who can create very strong, streams of income. Yeah, it's possible. And somebody might buy some land, and later on you find there's oil under that land, right? It's very subjective that way. So when we talk about realistic, is based on the knowledge that you have available and the skill and capacity that is available to you right now. Based on that, you should make a goal. Now you can make a 100-year goal, you can make a 50-year goal, you can make a 25-year goal, 5-year goal, 4-year goal, 2 days goal, 3 days goal, 1 hour goal. That is okay. That is how you manage yourself, and that's how you have a organized lifestyle. But you need to have some level of a goal. And one of the easiest ways is to say, okay, especially given that many people are working. But for businessmen, they always have some sort of a goal already in mind. But do you have some emergency savings, right? Do you have 6 months, or let's say 3 months of your consumption level available? Let's say I spend 50,000 rupees a month. Do I have 150,000 rupees available at any time in case I lose my job, in case there's a, kind of a pandemic situation, in case there's some kind of an emergency? So then I have that level of funding available. And so there are certain targets which are very well advised for someone to create wealth, so that the mind can be peaceful as you're generating wealth, because then you would want to start investing in a more long-term perspective in order to create a better environment for yourself. But in the starting, it takes a lot of time. So therefore, having at least, at least having 3 months of your consumption level is very good. That's called an emergency fund one. You have an emergency fund level two, which is basically your 6 months of consumption or easily available. And emergency fund for 1 year. These are usually considered three levels in which you can create some kind of a small amount, which will give you a lot of mental peace to be able to focus on other things without being too worried. And a lot of people use this in terms of always ensuring they have this, but they're always tracking what is their consumption level and making sure that those three funds are at that level, right? Times 3, times 6, times 12. And based on this, then you can start understanding that now I have some security. How do I start building now towards the bigger goal? Those are still part of your goal because they are still available, and they should be earning some interest at least, or some return. And based on that, building on that, how do I start creating now those bigger levels of wealth that most people would want to create, so that they have at least a stable amount of return coming to them? Now, based on these targets and measuring these targets and reviewing these targets, at least monthly, you should at least look once. Okay, where am I in my budget? Am I going towards my goal? Is there some new requirement that has come up? Is there some new taxes that has come? You don't need to know taxes, but you can get some just basic advice from a devotee accountant or someone who's got some financial knowledge. And is there a very high level of inflation? So my value has lost a lot of money, and has interest rates changed? Just to get some brief idea, and with time you will understand it, right? Because repetition means you become perfect at that thing. So understanding this, then you're always measuring how far you are from your target, and you're always keeping up to date, and you change your plan as you need to go, right? Or maybe your requirements become more, maybe you have some health condition, maybe you have a XYZ, so then you have to take care of those requirements. Now, building on that, there is two things that I would like to really add into this, which is called the rule of 72, right? And compounding interest. Now, whenever you have money, right, it is considered value, or gold, or Bitcoin, or anything. It's value because it is used for something, and that value is determined by the market, right? Like, this is the value of gold today. This is the value of $1 against £1. This is the value of one Bitcoin against $1. There is always a comparative that is used to create, to show that this thing has this much value, right? Because if you don't compare it to something, then how do you know this is of this much value, right? So therefore, the rule of 72 works on any return that you get, yeah, to understand in how much time that money will become double. Okay, and this is how you get to your goals faster. This is how the rich always become richer, right? Because of understanding the concept of rule of 72 and compounding interest. These two rules work together, right? So the rule of 72 states that if you have any return, right? So let's say you have 10% per year, right? You do 72 divide by 10, right? That gives you 7.2. So in 7.2 years, if today's the first day, I put 1 lakh rupees, that's 100,000 rupees, right? And I invest at 10%, right? In 7.2 years, it will become 2 lakh rupees, right? Because the rule is 72 divided by the interest, or by the return rate, and then will tell you how much period that your money will double. So let's say it was 10% per day. Then in 7.5 days, I would double my money. Obviously, it's 10% per year, the example. But I'm just telling you, as the days, the months, the years that you're getting your return on, based on that, even the the answer is similar. So if it's year in terms of 10% per year, then it will be 7.2 years, right? If it's 10% per day, then it's 7.2 days, right? That is important to understand. So when you use the rule of 72 and you have a target, right? Let's say you have a target, let's take a bigger target. Let's say you have a target of 50 million rupees. Okay. Now, if you want to get to 50 million rupees, you could either save until you get to 50 million rupees, or you can use the rule of 72 to work backwards to help you understand to a certain point, I need to invest money, and after that, that money will just grow to the 50 million. So let's take the example of the 10%. Okay. Now, I want 50 million rupees at the time I'm 60 years old. All right. And if assuming, this is just for assumption, that 10% stays throughout from today at the age of 25 all the way to the age of 60, 10% stays constant. It will always move, but we have to keep something constant to make an example clear. So if at the age of 60, I want 50 million rupees and today I'm 25, and everything is at 10%. So at the age of 60, I have 50 million rupees. I minus 7 years. Let's just take 7 years, right? That will give me 53 years. I need 25 million, because from 53 to 60, the 25 will become 50. All right. And then from 53, that is how much? That is 46, if I'm not wrong. You come to 46 years, I need only 12.5 million rupees, because from 46 to 53, that 12.5 will become 25. And then from 46 to 39, I need 6.5 million rupees, right? And from 39, I don't know if I've gone wrong here in my math. From 39 to 32, I need 6.5. That would be 3.15 million rupees, right? And then from 32 going all the way to maybe 25. So 3.5. Then I need maybe close to 1.5 million rupees. I mean, yeah, 1.5 or 1.6 million rupees. All right. So if I have 1.6 million rupees right now and I can invest, let's say, in a government bond that's 10%, that is for the next 30 years, that money will go from 1.5 million and keep compounding all the way till it gets to 50 million rupees at the time I'm 60. Obviously, you cannot touch the money throughout. You have to make sure that you don't, sell the bond off, or you don't give it to somebody, and that the interest rates stay safe and the government doesn't collapse and they can't pay you. But basically, I've just given an example backwards of how that money can grow. So 72 is showing you that the higher interest I get, the amount of time it takes for my money to double becomes faster. And so if I set a target, how can I double? And this extremely important example, right, took into account something called compounding interest. Now, compounding interest is the most powerful way to generate wealth, the most powerful way. It is so extremely important to understand this, that compounding interest is a very key way to generate wealth. And for those who don't know it, please go and Google, YouTube, watch some videos to understand compounding interest. This is super essential, right? So basically, how compounding interest works is this: I have 100 rupee and I want to put it in the bank for 1 year, and it's giving me 10%. So at the end of the first year, I will get 10 rupees, right? Now, year two, I can invest again 100 and I will get 10 rupees, correct? And again in the third year, I'll invest 100 and I'll get 10 rupees. So every year I'm investing 100, I'm getting 10 out. But what compounding interest says is that I have 100 rupees in the first year, I get 10. In the second year, I put 110 and then get an interest on that. And then third year, whatever the interest was at the second year, I add that to the original 100 rupees and I get a return on that. So what happens is, if you do this mathematically, and I will show this through some examples, is that compounding interest creates wealth much faster because the interest starts earning interest. And this is why it's so important to know where your money is. It's so important to track your investments. It's so important to manage money, managing value, create value by putting effort into it. And therefore, then you will understand that how money multiplies. And as money is multiplying, then automatically you understand how to deal with it. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's say you have 100,000 rupees, right? And you invested 10%. In 10 years, it'll become 200,000. So your value has increased by 100,000. Now, the same 200,000, again, you invest it for another 10 years, it'll become 400,000, right? So the difference is now my wealth has grown by 200,000 in let's say from year 1 to 10, it grew by 100,000. From year 11 to year 20, it grew by 200,000. And then 400,000, if you put it again for 10% for 10 years, it will grow to 800,000. That means from year 21 to 30, it grew by 400,000. It's the same amount of money that you initially invested. It's the same interest level, right? But the reason it's gone from 100 to 800 is because the interest has been compounding. And you can see I made 100,000 in the first 10 years, I made 200,000, then I made 400,000, right? So as wealth grows, right, this ability to generate bigger amounts of return is always going to be very easy later on. But initially, passing that curve, like let's say if you have 10,000 rupees, it will take you 10 years to just make 100,000. It's a long time. But if you had 500,000 rupees, you could really move faster in that. Yeah, if you have 10 million rupees, you can even move even further faster in terms of creating higher. But you always find people who have 10 million rupees, then their consumption is close to 10 million rupees. So they are in the same situation as someone who has 10,000 and spends 10,000. Unfortunately, this is a reality. You can observe this even in the society. But for someone who's got the capacity of 10 million but is spending like a 10,000 person, then either they're too miserly, or if they're spending 100,000, at least they're very, very strong financially, conceptually, and then they will grow that wealth very fast. So it is very important to understand that how can I break that curve, or how can I speed my journey on that curve from the smaller end to a certain level. Maybe it might take one generation, but then the following generation can now push that journey much faster. And therefore, this concept of the rich becoming rich is very, very obvious, because they have larger amounts of money, they put it, and that large amount of money creates a much larger return. They've already passed that bridge from the small end to the bigger end. Now, our goal is not to become, crazy money wise, but this is the concept of money: creating a certain amount of wealth and saying, okay, this is sufficient for my needs and my target. And obviously, that is giving me some return in which I will live off that. That's my passive income. And some of that money again can be reinvested, or the principal stays there and it grows. And how you can keep preserving that value and growing it and understanding the different concepts. So, this is a little bit of a complex example that I gave, and I tried to make it as simplified as I could. It's very important that these things are very, very thoroughly understood. I will request devotees to please do quite some research and understand this. It is super essential. Again, I'm happy to hear any questions that you have. If you need me to again explain it more, we can go into a bit more detail. But I've basically covered everything. Please give me some feedback if there's any points for continuous improvement. Share the video with a lot of devotees so that everybody can access this knowledge and really start building their wealth. And I will work now towards showing you some examples on Excel. So once I figure out how to do that on a YouTube video, and basically show you some examples of how you can do that. And basically, this covers in a nutshell almost the whole idea of money, right? And value and finance. Obviously, I will make some videos on financial systems so that you understand a bit more of how things are and how they work. But if you understand these concepts and you apply these in relation and under the foundation, or I mean, not under, on top of the foundation of Krishna consciousness and Shrimad Bhagavatam and Shrimad Bhagavad Gita's concepts and all the knowledge that is there, then you can have a very, very strong relationship of money being used in the right way. Otherwise, the money will overwhelm you, and all the effort that you put will probably have a lot of challenges with that result manifesting. So, thank you very much, and Hare Krishna.